TAQ Capital. Technical analysis quickly.
This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. Before taking any action based on the information provided on this channel, it is recommended that you seek the advice of a professional licensed financial advisor.
Let's do this.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today I'm going to dive right into Bitcoin here and take a look at what happened to the 6% run that I anticipated yesterday. I can only imagine that question's on some of your guys' minds at least. So we are currently in this yellow wedge. We've been in this purple one since back on June 18th, but we're going to zoom in on the yellow wedge to see what happened. Okay, the yellow wedge that I just showed you is this teal wedge here. This is my Fibonacci grid line chart. So the price action has been going on in here. And for those that haven't seen prior videos or are new to the channel here, we've got a 1 hit, 2 hit, let me get this right, sorry, 2 hit, 3 hit. This is the 4th hit. And the way that these wedges work is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's a breakout. So we've just been working our way out in the middle here between these two lines that form the wedge. Now the thing with the symmetrical wedges, the sideways broadening wedges, is we don't know if they're going to break up or down. Whereas when we have a downward wedge, we know it's going to break up, and when we have an upward wedge, we know it's going to break down. So we're operating a little more in the dark here. As far as what's going on with price action now, if we jump down to the 4 hour, we can see that the Ichimoku cloud is separating, and that's the green and the red line. This is the Tenkin, this is the Kijin, but we just had this little flip up. Well, this has decided to continue to go straight. Now, when price action took off this direction, which was just after I recorded my 6% run video, the reason why I was talking about the 6% run is because of the Fibonacci retracement tool. I saw this white wedge forming, and the first run up in the white wedge was from here to here. So if we place our Fibonacci tool right here, it'll tell us where, after retracement, where the next run will take us. And it indicated up here, and that's 22,423. I also pointed out a bunch of the resistance that it would meet along the way. This blue fib circle, this blue fib circle, this red fib circle, and so on. And of course, all the fib lines that you can see running diagonally. So as of right now, it's still unfolding. I mean, this space that's opened here, as a general rule, we'll call the candles down into that space, but it's not a very big space. So it's not, really pulling them down that hard, if you want to use that type of analogy. But if we jump up here to the 5th hour, or the 5 hour, you can see that while this hasn't flipped up yet, it very well may at 11 o'clock, which is an even bigger space, as you can see, which would be more compelling to call the candles down. So if there's some bullish price action in the meantime before 11, you could see the red come up at 11 and the green stay straight, which would then be more bullish action going back, heading back towards the areas that I called with the 6% run. So it's not over yet. But another thing to look at was the wedges. We have the white wedge, which I showed you. We have 1, 2, 3, and then our 4th hit here. This 4th hit is up for debate. If that's not the 4th hit, then we would just raise this higher. So if price action goes higher yet, it would be like this, and then we would come up here, and then this would be when we get our breakout down, because this is an upward channel. It's actually more like an upward broadening wedge, because this is subtly going higher at that point. But either way, it'll break out down here. But I was also looking at the purple wedge that formed within the white wedge that's doing this. And we've got our first hit here, second hit there, third hit here, and then the 4th hit will be somewhere up here. So my wedge is actually off. I just jumped down to the 2 hour because it's easier to do on smaller time frames. So we got our first hit, second hit. This I thought was the 3rd hit. This was the 4th hit, and then we came down. However, we broke through here. So the question becomes, did this reshape the wedge, which I'll show you here in a second, causing this to actually be the third hit and not this, in which case this could not be the fourth hit because it came before this hit. Again, I'll show you that in 1 second. And then this would mean that we would be going up somewhere higher at least than this, which supports the narrative that we're heading there. So the other option, the other scenario, is that this is just its first attempt at a breakout, and it's kind of like a bounce and then over, and then that's when we break out, which is what looks like is the case as of right now. So the 11 o'clock is going to be very revealing for us. And what I mean by reshaping the wedge is if we take this hit here as our third hit, we have to then lower this to where it meets that line there, which means this is no longer hitting, which means this is our first hit here, second hit, third hit, and now we need a fourth hit somewhere after here on this line. So again, this could just be some temporary action like this before we go up, in which case we would go above this line here and it would actually play out. This would also adjust our white wedge line to up wherever it ends up hitting. So if the purple, this is the third hit, if this becomes the fourth hit, this is also the fourth hit on the white wedge, and then we come down, break out of the purple, we'll actually end up breaking out of the yellow, which is the wedge we've been in since June 18th. Then we would break out of the white, and that would indicate our next major bearish move. Alternatively, this Fibonacci retracement tool will not be running from first white hit to second white hit, but rather the initial sideways broadening teal wedge that runs up like this. And if that's the case, then this becomes our first run. So moving the Fibonacci tool would actually be over here, down here, and this makes our second run go this high, which it went up like this, down, went up, and then it did go that high before it came back down again. So then we'd have to run a whole new Fibonacci retracement tool from here to here to see if it's going to be an Elliott wave and we're going to get that third run. Now, the triple run is less common than I think people make it out to be, or they play with what they consider a run to be to make it seem more common than it really is. Often you end up with a run like this where, if we count this as the first run, which is misleading, the second run, when it retraces, the second run will come up just slightly higher than that. And we actually saw that back here in the big wedge we've been in, the one that this yellow dotted line signifies. Let me zoom out here. So this purple wedge is the one that started on June 18th. And if we run the retracement tool from here to here, it's signaling that we're going to get this high eventually. Okay? Well, technically it's saying the second run, but here it actually worked out to be eventually. Because if we take our first run, when we retraced, we only came up slightly higher than that first run before we went down again. And this signaled a change in the wedge, because originally back here, as it was unfolding, we would have had the wedge like this. So then when it came down here, the question was this 1, 2, 3, and then 4, because this wedge would have been, the top of the wedge would have been here. And then was this our first attempt at a breakout, flop over, break down? No, it was not. It actually reshaped the wedge. So we moved this down here, and then this hit would not have counted because it would have to come after this hit. So when we went back up, we knew it was going to be higher than here. And then it ended up being almost, I said almost? No, right at that level. It just passed it here. And then it made a second attempt to go higher, and then even a third attempt to go higher, and then fizzled out. So these were not third runs. This was the second run. So yeah, you can count 1, 2, 3, and you can call that an Elliott wave. But if you're talking about the Fibonacci retracement tool, this call out here, how I use it, signaled that was the completion of 1, and then we got a 2, and we attempted a 3 and it didn't work, and then we came crashing down. So maybe I'm using the Elliott wave theory and tool wrong. But the way that I've seen them play out is they hit this orange one, but they seldom do it in a third run. So comparing that to what we've got going on now, we had our first run, second run, did not hit this target. Not here anyway. And then it comes down a little bit more, spikes up, clips the target, and comes crashing back down. So we've got our first run. Our second run here has come just a little bit higher, which is kind of like the second run we saw on the other screen. Right here, it hit this point, and then we came back down, a little bit higher, came back down, a little bit higher, and then it fizzled out. So we have more of this going on right now than we have the successful hit of here, because the successful hit that we just had signals that. Now we are after this point, this way. That's what we're dealing with on this other chart. We had our hit to the line here, and now we've got a run up. We've got a second run up, and it's not getting to where we should be if we redrew another Fibonacci retracement tool. So the question is the Ichimoku cloud going to win here, or is the Fibonacci retracement going to play out? And as of right now, I think that the Ichimoku cloud is going to win and it's going to pull these candles down. And we're running out of room here on the purple. So if we're running out of room, it doesn't have much room to make a decision to go higher. So is it possible that it could come down here over the next few candles and then take off? Yes, it is. But I wouldn't bank on that. I think this might be the end of it. We're going to come down, break the purple, come down, break the yellow, come down, break the white. And we're going to complete this white wedge, complete this yellow wedge, and complete this purple wedge. And as you can see too, the sideways action that we needed to get out of the yellow wedge that we've been in since the beginning of the breakdown, which if I zoom out to the 10 hour, you can see here, this was the peak of the run. And then we started to form this wedge. And we had our first hit, second hit, third hit, fourth hit. We've been going sideways since, and we just broke out of the side here. So now the question is, do we break up or do we break down? And I think we break down, because this made its first contact with the yellow wedge here, and then it's kind of acted like a bounce. Well, that stopped working. Let's try this. Acted as a bounce, came down, and it's going to, just out this side, and then it's going to crash on the other side and break through this. So it completes the yellow wedge, it completes the white wedge, it completes the purple wedge, and everything gets wrapped up nicely with a little bow, and we start the next run down. That's where my money is. And last but not least, you can see as the Bollinger Bands are coming down here, this smoky mist, and they're forming the tunnel where the pressure builds. You can see here we had a massive spike outside of it on the 4 hour, and that usually will result in an overcorrection. So the question becomes, was this the overcorrection, or do we have more to where we're going to actually do what I call a 4 hour reset, where on the 4 hour chart it resets to the other side of the Bollinger Bands? And I think it's going to be bigger than simply a 4 hour reset. I think it's not only going to be a 4 hour reset, but it's going to begin the next bubble down as we have a meltdown. And this, if zoomed out, looks like this, what we just came out of. So we had the tunnel here, and then we didn't just have the 4 hour reset, which you can see the same thing happen here. It shot up outside of the Bollinger Bands. Let me zoom out a little bit more so you can get a better look at that. It shot up outside of the Bollinger Bands, then came down, and then we had another little run up here, which you could consider this little run up here, which was just enough to break out of this yellow wedge, and then it couldn't hold it and it came melting down. And I think that's where we're headed. Here's the little 4 hour, because the pressure built in the tunnel, exploded up, and now we're going to get our overcorrection and we're going to go down. Anyway, that's it for me, guys. I hope this was informative for you. I'm going to record a few more videos on some altcoins, so if you're following the channel and you're watching each video that I put up, those will go up later today too. I appreciate you watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and have a great day out there.